Hi Aries, it's Erin Scott here. Welcome to your 2019 September Alchemy Scope. Let's take a look. We're going to dive into your natural evolutionary process via three modalities today. We're looking at an art channeling, messages, forms, symbols, and story that came through via this art process that I went into. That's what we're looking at now. This is a speeded up video. We're going to look at a divinatory pulled message for you, and we're also going to look at your astrology for this month of September. So you can see that this art drawing imagery started with this diagonal curved orange line, then with green below it in the lower left hand corner, and then with these upshoots up through it. And then brown came through, wanted to be used, so we're using a brown pastel here for what is becoming earth, soil. And we're going to be looking at this once it's complete. But you're going to notice that from this lower left-hand corner in this green area, there are these brown tubes that are emerging in the soil. Okay? These pathways within the soil. And you're seeing here I'm using a black pen, so I'm not just using pastels but also this ink pen for more detail. And these drawings, first of all, are not the best and most articulated drawings. These are symbolic channeled processes that come through, so a lot of them are sloppy. But here we have a worm that's emerged, right? So clearly these tubules, these pathways under the soil or within the soil are part of worm transit and operation. And here I'm drawing this red sphere. This is really a sun. It was clear that this was a red sun. Underneath the worm, though, you can see that I drew or I wrote out worm castings. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. And here we have these three mountain peaks. Also red. They got highlighted in red. And here they were emphasized in red again. So red and brown. And there's three, which is interesting. And then the growth, these lines that came up through this angled slope of land, you notice that they're coming up through the peaks of these mountains. And then one of them bisects the sun. So we're going to talk about that as well. And there's a bloom, there's a green growth, there's a new blossom that's coming up and out through the soil, through this composted earth, up through the red orb, the red sun, beyond. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else that came through here. I think that was the completion. So Aries, let's go ahead and take a look here then at what is this? What does this narration, what do these forms and symbols indicate at all for the month of September for you? Well, the first thing out was this sloped orange line. Well, orange represents the second chakra, creative energy, sexual energy. It's a moving energy, active energy. There's a change energy to the orange sphere within the body system, the chakra system, but also to the energy of orange. Orange can talk about creative explorations, curiosity, education, learning. Here there was this kind of sloped area that appears to look like land, right? So we have the sloped area of land that has green vibrancy to it. So we have the green coloration to this vibrant land. Underneath that, specifically, rich brown soil with worms and worm castings being notated here. That was the very clear message and imagery that came through when these tubules or these pathways under the soil were being drawn. For you, compost, rich black compost is the message for you. And I say black because it's that really rich, dark brown, almost black compost. That's the message for Aries. What does that mean? Well, compost and worm castings is really worms moving through the soil, and the excrement from the worms and their digesting of whatever remnants, whatever has died and entered into the soil, or has died on top of the soil and become part of the soil. The worm castings are filled with nutrients. This is the waste product of the worms. And indeed, this process of eating and excreting creates the most rich, the most mineral rich, the most healthy and dynamic and diverse, fully healthy and prosperous soil for the ecosystem as a whole. Worms also represent something else here, everyone. There's a symbology to worm, right? Now, from my research, worms, first of all, worms obviously move slowly. So there's a slowness that's needed here, Aries, with your month of September. A meticulous nature to moving slowly and working with what you have. There's a recyclability and to your process of using the information that you know. In fact, what I will say is that with regards to this orange line that we have here, orange does represent learnings. And so the interesting thing is, from what you have learned, underneath that, there's a wealth of knowledge and things that you are to digest. You are, Aries, to assimilate and digest, literally think about, contemplate, mull over the things that you've learned, the experiences that you've had. That's what this is talking about. That's what that orange is for you, okay? But there's more symbolism here to worm. Worm speaks about miraculous regeneration, and it speaks about healing, okay? And it also speaks to the reassurance to keep going, because there is process happening for you that is vital to the rich compost of your life that is occurring. Okay, you're in the process of creating the compost. You're in the process of digesting the experiences and the situations and the life lessons and the wounding patterns to transmute them, to up-level them. That's what's activated for this month for you. Okay. And it also speaks to, as I was saying earlier, taking things one step at a time. All right. Now, that's worm, and that's the worm castings. That's this vermiculture, rich soil compost. Now, there are blooms. There are these green growths coming up and out through learned experience and this digestive process that you're doing with the things that you've learned. These growths ended up coming up and out through these pinnacle peaks of the mountains. Do you see that? With 1/4 one coming out through the sun. Now, the mountains are brown soil, right? This is the soil. So the mountains in the future, or the mountains in the distance Aries, are brown, representing the soil that you are currently processing right now. The things that you are creating with your growth and evolutionary process, okay? The things in your life matter, and indeed they're making the matter that is going to be the material that you create in the future. Now, there are 3 represents communication, 3 represents community, 3 represents creativity. So the fact is that the soil that you're creating now is in the process of giving you the stepping stones and the foundation to build or to move toward the peaks of experience, the goals that you are setting for yourself. With regards to some creative expression, some team collaborative expression, some communication goal that you have. But there's also red in these mountains, Aries. Red as well as the brown. And red is energy. It's passion, it's inspiration. It's having the anger being utilized, funneled, and channeled in a way that's going to help you create the material, what's the word I'm looking for? Because Aries, these are mountain peaks. This is mountains. So these are like mountains to climb. These are big goals that you have. That's what I want to say. And I actually think that the red and the brown combination for these mountains, for these big goals, indicates that you can see down the road what needs to happen. And what I'm seeing for some of you is politically, societally, that you're looking on the broader picture of what is needed for humanity, not just for your own goals, but for the collective, using the anger, the passion, the energy, the vital life force that you have, that you're being triggered by at this time in our global evolution, to help you and the compost soil that you're creating within yourself to see the mountains in the future, to see that you do have mountains to climb, but to know that you have the energy that it takes, you know that you have the skill sets that it takes in order to create these manifest forms. What's happening in September is there's some recognition of this. You're connecting the deep process of the composting happening and the futuristic big mountain goals that are in the future for you. Okay? But the truth is that these green sprouts are coming up and through the peaks. So you're already laying the groundwork this month. There's something being laid that's preparing you for some process in the future that wants to become made manifest. The fact is, the red sun, the sun obviously is usually gold, yellow, whitish. Here it's red. And so the sun can represent the third chakra here in the body system, representing your persona, your will, your determination, also you as an identity. And red indeed is a color associated with Mars. Mars is your ruling planet. And what I see here is a lot of fire that's ruling your identity these days. Now, for some of you, this does indicate that September is going to activate or catalyze a lot of anger stuff that's going to come up. For some of you, this is going to be growth edges that need to be contended with. For others of you, it's going to be more channeled or more identified in the way of needing to take action in one way, shape, or form. You are going to be taking action in some manner this month toward an impassioned goal that you have. And there is some bloom, that stem coming up and out through the ground, and it's transiting halfway through that solar orb. It even looks like, even the landscape of Mars here, does it not? I mean, we have this kind of red sun, and then we have like the red highlights at the top of these three mountain peaks, Aries. In a way, it kind of looks like a Mars landscape here. So there's an indication here of kind of dry and desertification, waterless. Mars is the god of war. So there could be these activations of a drive, an impassioned warrior-like drive forward, even when you don't see a lot of green. There's some green in this imagery, certainly, but with all of the red and the brown Mars sort of landscaping, it might feel dry. So for some of you, you might be contending with this feeling or sensation of it's like the warrior pursuing it despite not feeling nurtured. But I want you to understand that the worm and the soil and the composting that's being developed, ultimately, if you're not feeling nurtured at this time, you will be. So it's important that you understand that if the vision's out in the future for you, in your perceptive reality, if you're seeing a desertified future for yourself or for the globe, for the world, for Earth, for Gaia, please know that that's your perceptive mechanism, and there's some imagination that wants to be fueled by all of this Mars red energy here, this impassioned vital life force energy, to tap into your passions. And I do feel for a lot of you there's going to be some creative expression here. Why? Because we're looking at the 3 mountain peaks. Something about collaboration, communication, and creativity will emerge. Okay? When the time is right, it will emerge. This month, though, there's that green flower and green leaves coming up through that sun. Something gets activated, something gets made manifest, right? Or something certainly is begins to come into fruition that is an indicator, or maybe even starting to guide the vision for what your goals are for the future. Okay? So, very interesting that. Now, Aries, let's go ahead and take a look here at the divinatory message that came through for you. All right. Now, I went out in nature. This was last week, actually, and I went into a wonderful process for all of the archetypes. And the messages that came through for each of the archetypes was so highly appropriate for each one of them, meaning the intrinsic narrative that is the nature of each archetype was really fed and validated by the messages coming through, meaning this month of September is very aligned with your natural archetype. Now, this is about Traveler's Fork. Typically, this would be more associated along the lines of the archetype of Jupiter and Sagittarius, but Traveler's Fork is rather interesting because what this is indicating is your growth edge this month is new adventures, new experiences. Okay, so let me read this. This is written by Cindy Solano. And you can see this is a palmistry deck here. So you can see Traveler's Fork, time for new adventures is the actual message. And you can see the bottom of the palm is where there's a V formation on some people, okay? And you'll see it circled there. You can press that to apply acupressure to stimulate this particular growth for you this month. So for this month, this is what Cindy writes. We love to be comfortable, warm, well-fed, and in familiar surroundings. Yet to continue our growth, we need to explore the new and exciting paths around us. Life is about having adventures. When was the last time you went somewhere you have never been before, even in the town where you live? To grow and rediscover the magic of life, it is important to have a change of scenery on a regular basis. This renews our spirit, reduces our stress and worries, and helps us to feel more connected to other cultures and the planet. So the interesting thing about this is, we're looking at kind of this composting, this actively composting soil within you that's being activated this month. Indeed, there is a prompting with all of the red energy in your artistic channeling, prompting action of some sort. The growth for you, according to this message, is to experience new things, to do new things, to see new things, to connect to the planet in a way that's beyond your comfort zone, to connect with the places in your vicinity that is beyond your comfort zone, to discover new things. So this is a month for new adventures indeed. That's the growth for you, okay? Now, let's go ahead and take a look at your astrology for this month of September, all right? Now, as you can see here in the chart, we have the main planetary placements as they were at the new moon point, beginning the energetic narrative for this month ahead, all right? So we're looking at the Aries archetype, your natural growth cycle during this time frame. Well, you can see quite naturally, as a lot of you already know, a stellium of planets all conjuncted together in Virgo. For you, Virgo, for the archetype of Aries, the emphasis of energy is in your 6th house, Virgo, okay? This is all about work. And so a lot of that red energy in the artistic channeling, certainly there's a drive for movement and action to be taken, right? So indeed, 6th house of work, day-to-day routine, health. Your body, issues of health, diet might be more of an issue for you naturally in the month of September, okay? So the desire to be healthier about some things. But the interesting thing is, if you look at that grouping of, in this case, because we're pulling for the new moon that happened on the 31st of August, which is mapping out the energetic signature for the month of September. This, of course, shows the sun and moon conjunct in this chart. So you have the sun and moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, and also the part of fortune is here as well. Okay, but in this particular narrative, you can see, or in this particular chart, you can see the opposition. So across from the planetary conjunction, on the other side of the chart, you have Black Moon Lilith at 10 degrees Pisces, and you have Neptune at 17 degrees Pisces in the 12th house. So what I was going to say is, for some of you, there's going to be a prompting to take more healthful action with your food, your diet, your exercise, your day-to-day routine. For others of you, there's going to be some self-sabotage that emerges and rises this month naturally. And that's due to that Lilith connection there, and also due to the Neptune connection there. So 12th house is these unconscious soul structure narratives. It's karmic activity, but it's also the unconscious aspects of your soul structure narrative. And so what we're looking at naturally with Black Moon Lilith there is, I am existentially not valuable. That what I do, the actions that I take, don't matter anyway. So why do anything? This is especially the case, by the way, for you. Why? Because we're talking about the Aries archetype, and we're talking about the stellium of planets in the 6th house of Virgo. Virgo is about manifestation. It's about physical work. It's about the reality and the minutia of the day-to-day physical existence of being human. On the other side is Pisces, the immaterial realm. The immaterial realm with this wounding narrative of Black Moon Lilith, along with Neptune. Now, Neptune in the 12th is highly intuitive. There's a psychic capacity that's definitively there. There's a great ability to visualize and to fantasize and imagine. The imagination, the spiritual connection to the etheric, and imagining the ideal scenarios for X, Y, Z is very much activated for you, Aries, naturally during this time frame. Okay? And by the way, not just this time frame, for a long while now. Neptune through Pisces is an exceedingly long transit. And so you have been and will continue to be in a very imaginative place. Ability to see idyllic realities. That's what I'll say. Okay? But this particular time frame, Black Moon Lilith is partnered there. And because of this stellium of planet over in the 6th house in Virgo. Now, by the way, when we're looking at your archetypal chart, Aries, we're looking at the archetypal chart because you begin the zodiac wheel, right? So you, Aries, begin the zodiac wheel with the 1st house, meaning that your archetype is the it's the exemplar, okay? So that being said, in the natural zodiac wheel, Aries starts it, and Virgo is the 6th house, which is, of course, exactly your chart here, right? So I don't know if that made sense, but with all of this in 6th house Virgo, what we're talking about is physical reality, physical health, health and healing, the details of the day, and we're talking about work, getting to work, doing the work, putting in the hours, making sure that all of the details of everything that needs to be handled and logistically taken care of in physical reality are handled. But the fact is, with this current opposition over to Pisces Neptune and Pisces Black Moon Lilith, there can be some unconscious self-sabotaging patterns that can come about. Now, there can also be, for some of you, some great spiritual clarity that comes about with regards to the physical things that you do in this world, or the choices that you make with regards to diet and food, that will be clarified for a lot of you this month. For others of you, you're going to do things and you're not going to understand why. And how you're going to understand why is to go into your meditative process. Meaning it's indicating this month, simply by the energies of the chart, there's indication that you will be well served by developing, if you don't have one already, developing a spiritual ritual. Okay? Now, there's also a square up here to Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 9th house for you. And what this is indicating is that a lot of Aries are going to feel motivation and impetus and a drive, okay, to communicate on a broader level. There could also be indication here to travel. And the thing is that you have the Traveler's Fork card that came forward as your guidance. And if we look at the astrology, it's completely keyed in, okay? The square between the stellium of planets in that 6th house, squaring that Jupiter in the 9th house, that's all about travel. That's the desire, that's the I was going to say the anxiety. For some of you, it could be felt that way, but it's certainly the desire set that gets laid to travel, to go to different places, to see new things. And that is your growth edge, Aries. So for those of you listening to this and resonating with that, you do want to discover new things this month, meaning it's naturally aligned for you to do that. That's why the appropriate card came out last week, okay, when I pulled the card. So it's very important that you understand that follow the impetus, right? Investigate, learn, meet new people. That's another thing about this Jupiter in the 9th house Sagittarius squaring all of this stuff in the 6th house of Virgo. There could be opportunities happening for you naturally this month where you're going to meet new people. In the work that you do, you could come upon new people, meet new people, communicate via Skype or Zoom with new people, that kind of thing. Okay. The stellium, the common and well-known stellium of Saturn South Node Pluto for you, is happening in Capricorn in the 10th. This has been activated for you for a long time now. It's still there. The great thing is that in the month of September, Saturn is going to start moving direct, and it's going to break away from its paralleled pathway with the South Node. This is very good, and it's going to start moving forward, start moving direct, and by mid-October, it's going to have a good distance from that South Node. This is very good because the South Node Saturn conjunction has been quite intense, especially, number one, because it's been alongside Pluto, but simply by the fact that those two energies on their own are intense. South Node is old patterns. Saturn is, when it's an old Saturnian pattern, we're talking about rigid, controlling, need to dominate, the need to dominate in order to control the circumstance, right? And it can be highly reductionist thinking, very narrow-minded, very short-viewed, okay? Very left-brained, all right? So with that all being said, you're holding all of this energy with a lot of rigid old patterns that are up for transmutation. Aries, you're holding that in the 10th house of career, your social presence in the world, who you are out in the world, how you engage with the world, what your aspirations are for how you show up to the world. But certainly we're talking about career, the bigger work that you're doing here in the world, okay? So for you, there can be old rigidity with patterns of being with regards to sticking with a traditional, that's very Capricorn, a traditional career. that maybe is calling to be transmutated, and you've been feeling the pressure around that, okay? You can see here that that stellium of Pluto South Node Saturn up there, the 10th house Capricorn, is trining the stellium of planets in Virgo. So this is powerful because there's an indication here that all the energy in Virgo's 6th house of your day-to-day work is being benefically aided by some sort of transmutation that's happening with the career. Now, could it be that the transmutation with the career in Saturn has to do with a layoff? Could it be that the transmutation up in Capricorn 10th house has to do with the boss leaving or the company being sold? Or with you getting the proper insights about things where you make the choice to leave or to make a big change for yourself? Could it be that? But there's an indication that there's a harmonic event horizon with regards to your work and your career that is activated in the month of September. This could indeed be a time of new beginnings for you. And by the way, especially because we are in fact talking about this Virgo new moon month. And quite naturally, when we look at your archetypal zodiac wheel here, we're looking at 6th house of health. We're looking at 6th house of health, indeed, but we're looking at 6th house of work as well. So there is an indication that there's a lot of focus on your work. You might be assessing, what is my return on investment with the norm here? There might be a lot of thinking and thought going into the work that you're doing. Mercury rules your 6th house. It rules Virgo. So, yeah, let's see what else. There's also another trine here, right? So there's also a trine Aries from that stellium in the 6th house Virgo and over to Uranus Taurus. Uranus and Taurus, second house of your value, including the income that you earn, the money that you have, the possessions that you have, the safety and the security that you have in order to live, survive, and thrive, and indeed be abundant. So that second house of values with that Uranian shifting energy, refining energy, trauma signature energy, the need for freedom energy, and also the up-leveling energy, right? So there's a need to up-level the energy of wherever that is happening. And for you, it's happening with your sense of self-value. How you value the self and what you do to value the self. What career do you have to value the self? You are going through changes career-wise, Aries. No question about it. With Uranus for you in the 2nd house for the next many years, there's zero question. And especially with that grand trine, Aries, okay? So Uranus trining the stellium in Virgo currently, because that's what we have now, and then up to that career sector with Pluto transmutating old traditional patterns of career. Definitively, you guys are going through changes with regards to your aspirations for work and career, which is aligned. It's aligned with the changes happening with the human psyche, the collective consciousness, the earth, the solar system, the human genome, everything, okay? Okay, beauties, I think that's all I have for you. I guess the last thing I'll say quickly is North Node for you is in Cancer, and it's in the 4th house. And what this indicates is, ironically, you have change in work and career. You have new valuations, a revaluation happening with regards to how you value the self, what you think about money, how you care about money or don't care about money. Maybe a release of possessions is wanting to happen. You're more detail oriented in what you're doing with regards to, or the money that you have. There's a simplification. There's a new value system that you're deriving here. And in the meantime, that North Node is in Cancer in that 4th house. So the goal for you is to love yourself more, to pay attention to yourself more, your emotional needs. There's a need for you naturally, Aries, to attend to issues of home, family, your inner reality, your inner truth, your inner essence, what truly matters to you, and what feeds you emotionally. That's a major mastery arc for the generalized Aries archetype there. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Much more to come in future Alchemy Scopes. I send you all much love and support. For those interested, I have a load of sales happening this first week in September, and they might continue throughout the month of September. You're invited to go to my website to see what's on offer. You can see the links below. For those interested in getting weekly analyses such as this one, similar, you're welcome to become a member. You can see the membership details below. We'd love to have you. And I think that's it. All right, Aries, until next month, have a good one. Lots of love. Bye-bye.